On May the 8th, 2019, at bang on 10 a.m, I died. Prior to that date, my life had felt relatively in order. Not without its challenges, but pretty good. I just turned 50. I've been married to my lovely wife, Karina, for 21 years. We had 2 fantastic teenage lads who brought no trouble to our door. Rare, I know. I owned and ran a thriving event management business. There were no Ferraris on the drive, but there was no wolf at the door either. I was active, healthy, and generally enjoying life. And then I died. I had a sudden cardiac arrest, and just for the sake of clarity, a cardiac arrest isn't the same as a heart attack. A heart attack is a plumbing issue, a blocked artery. You can have a heart attack and still be conscious. A cardiac arrest is an electrical issue. My heart stopped beating, I stopped breathing, and that's how I would have remained forever. Now, I'm here talking with you, so you will have guessed that I survived. And the only reason I did survive is because it all happened right in front of my wife, mid-sentence. No warning, no breathlessness, no pain, no fade to black. That was it. All done. And just like the billions of people that had gone before me, my time on planet Earth was over. Except, somehow, with no medical training, Karina carried out CPR until the paramedics arrived. And even then, the first shock didn't touch the sides. The dials turned up, the second shock given, and I was back. I'd been dead for 11 minutes. A question I'm often asked is, what's it like to be dead? But actually, what I think is, how is it I'm even still alive? My wife saved my life. How scary must that have been for her? To have someone's life in your hands, for her to have my life in her hands, to be uncertain about what she was doing and the outcome, but carry on anyway. I can't imagine what that must have felt like. And looking at the TV and the movies, you might think that the survival rate for a cardiac arrest is pretty high. It isn't. There are 100 people here in this audience tonight, and if you were all unlucky enough to have a cardiac arrest here, outside of hospital, in England, according to NICE, only 8 of you would survive. 8%. And my cardiologist told me that about half of all survivors suffer some kind of brain damage. I was in the final 4% with no brain damage. How lucky am I? And before that day, I never really particularly regarded myself as a lucky person, but somehow I won the biggest prize of all. Chance of a second life. So, back to that question of what's it like to die? Perhaps a better one is, what is it like to truly live? Because, unsurprisingly, given those odds, my perspective on life changed somewhat. And to be fair, there have been many shifts, but there are 3 that stand out to me in particular. The first shift is that I now appreciate and celebrate more of life's small wins. I vividly remember the day that I was being transferred from intensive care back to the ward, and the nurse settling me in said something to me that day in an almost throwaway fashion. But it's something that stuck with me for the rest of my life. And he said, any win's a win, and we take them all. Let me just repeat that. Any win's a win, and we take them all. In a world full of other people's edited social media highlights, it's easy to get sucked into thinking that only the big wins count, isn't it? But the reality is, most wins in life are the small wins. Sunshine on your day off, random acts of kindness, actually getting through to that booking website for a gig you're desperate to go to. And when you start looking for them, these small wins, they're everywhere. We're literally tripping over them. And you've got to celebrate them. Because it's the accumulation of all of these wins, which, when you add them up, define each of our unique days and lives. And that's the big win. But if the crux of what the nurse was saying is that we've got to celebrate even the smallest of wins, then what on earth was I to do with outrageously huge sliding doors win like the chance of a second life? Words change worlds. And what was just a throwaway comment changed my outlook on life forever. The next big shift is that I now have the perspective to compare the events of that day with the significance of life's other daily challenges. The kind of challenges we all face, from the irritating, annoying stuff like being delayed in traffic, right up to the big stuff like having to break some bad news to a friend. Well, to help manage these challenges, can you imagine a scale between 1 and 10, where my 1 is not much at all, and 10 is, oh, I'm sorry, you're already dead, so this problem no longer concerns you. And now, can you think of some issue, some problem, maybe something that's faced early on today? And then think, where on this scale does this problem sit? Because what I first noticed when I started using this scale is that quite often things are never as bad as our emotions trick us into thinking they are. What can feel like a 7, actually, might only be a 3 or even a 2. Being delayed in traffic, yeah, it's really annoying. But what can you do about it? And besides, everyone is late at some point. And you know what? In a few hours, it probably won't even matter. But for me, what stands out about this scale of not much at all up to, and would you prefer flowers or donations, is that everything, and I mean everything, has to be less than a 10. It's comforting to think that whatever issue I'm facing is going to be less than a 10. The worst thing that happened to me has already happened. And that, for me, is quite a liberating thought. I use this scale daily, and I refer to it as my shitometer. I find it's a really useful tool to help me gauge whether something really is as shit as it first seems, or perhaps on reflection, it's more like a fart. Unpleasant, but it'll pass. The most significant of the 3 shifts is my relationship with decision-making and opportunities. And actually, if I'm being honest, at its core, that means my relationship with fear. What's your relationship with fear? Does it hold you back? Do you allow it to stand in your way? Are you aware of an even more insidious effect of fear? Are you aware that fear could be taking decisions out of your hands? Fear dictates an awful lot of what we don't do, and sometimes with good reason. If my cat blows off into the lions enclosure, I'm not going in there to get it. But how justified is fear when it comes to things that won't result in a mauling? Just how dangerous would it be to apply for a more fulfilling job? To ask someone out on a date? To stand in front of an audience and deliver a TEDx talk? Fear is quick to pass judgment, censoring our opportunities, dismissing them, almost like, well, without even questioning. Narrowing our life experiences like an overprotective parent. And who hasn't heard the voices? It's too difficult. What if I fail? What if they laugh? What if they don't laugh? Yeah, but so what? Is that a 10 on the shitometer? Nope. If you don't get the outcome that you're looking for, especially at the first time of asking, well, chances are you're going to learn from it, you're going to get a story out of it, and probably both, but also you might enjoy it, or you might just be glad that you tried, or you might realize you want to try again. So this third shift means that I'm now increasingly alert to the role that I allow fear to play in my decision making. And it's not that it's gone away or that it plays no role, it's just that I recognize it more. I recognize the discomfort and the friction of when it shows up. And when it does show up, I'll now stop and explore that friction and wonder, what's this about? Why does this feel so edgy? Because quite often when I feel that edginess, that's when I realize that there's an opportunity lurking. And opportunities are like doorways, they're like personal portals to places and life experiences that don't yet exist. Now, I'm not saying that everything now is a yes, and nor should it be. But if after exploring that sense of friction, I'm still curious about the opportunity, then I'll ask myself another question. Why not me? I suppose you could say I'm developing a sort of a Dr. Pepper approach to life. What's the worst that could happen? What are the real consequences if I don't get the outcome that I was hoping for? Would it be a 10 on my shitometer? Doubtful. Because I absolutely believe that in 20 years' time, every single one of us will give our right arms to be able to travel back in time to now, to change some of our choices, to be a little bolder with some of our choices. Some of us may want a complete overhaul, others just a little bit of fine-tuning. But I doubt any of us would plough the exact same furrow. Well, you've got your wish. You're all back here to now. We can all challenge fear. We all have far more influence over our lives than we ever give ourselves credit for. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that I'm some kind of ultra-fearless Zen master, the governor of all of my emotions all the time. Not at all. And besides, my wife would never allow me to peddle such a blatant lie. But I am learning to be more attentive to and conscious of my decision-making. I'm embracing opportunity. And why not? Given my outrageously huge sliding doors win. Because in some counterintuitive twist, dying is the most liberating, motivating, transformative thing that's ever happened to me. Life is short and fragile. And sometimes it can be a fine line between having one and not. And if we're lucky, very, very lucky, we'll get about 80 orbits of the sun. And we can all do our own arithmetic, can't we? And yes, there's always going to be an element of compromise in life. But why allow fear to compromise our options and opportunities without ever really questioning why? Because on that last day, when we take that last breath, all of those fears that we allowed to limit our options and opportunities, unchallenged, well, all those fears at that point will count for nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the truth is, most of them never did. So, now when I'm asked that question, what is it like to die? My answer is, what can we all do to truly live? Because no one has to go through what I did to rethink the way they live their lives. We all have the power of choice. Let's start by choosing to learn CPR. A cardiac arrest is the ultimate medical emergency. The chances of survival are slim. But as my wife would tell you, you might not just be fighting to save someone else's life, you might be fighting to save your own life, your own world too. Let's all of us look for and celebrate life's small wins in our daily lives. Let's all of us remember to give ourselves a sense of perspective. Develop your own versions of the shitometer. And the next time you feel the friction of fear trying to close one of those doorways, one of those portals of opportunity, just stop, think about it, and explore those feelings. And if you're still curious about the opportunity after exploring those feelings, then please just ask yourself 2 questions. Why not me? And what's the worst that can happen? Thank you.